In today's video, we have the latest trade talk on teams like the Columbus Blue Jackets, Ottawa Senators, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Plus, we have some injury updates, another signing, some players in trouble with NHL player safety. We'll discuss all the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at today. First up, we get more news from the NHL waiver wire. The Nashville Predators have placed forward Kiefer Sherwood on waivers. So far this year, he's appeared in 5 games. He has 1 goal and 1 assist for 2 points. So we'll see tomorrow afternoon if Sherwood will be reassigned to the Predators minor league affiliate or if indeed another team will pick him up. I'm not really sure what the odds are in that case. I would say there's a pretty good chance that he will probably clear. We did see a few incidents last night that made us wonder if there'd be a few players in trouble with NHL player safety today. So far, we've only got word on 1 decision from player safety, so I think the other player is going to escape without further penalty here. But New York Islanders center Casey Cizikas was fined $5,000 for goaltender interference. I believe he was given a major penalty on the play as well, but he essentially ran over Hawks goaltender Alex Stalock. Probably fair to say that the contact could have been avoided. I don't think he went in there trying to intentionally injure him, but that has resulted. Stalock is going to be out. They had to sign somebody else, which we'll get into here momentarily. So certainly not an ideal situation for Chicago. They've signed Dylan Wells, who essentially has been a minor leaguer for about 4 seasons. He was originally a 2016 Edmonton Oilers draft pick. Been in the minors, I think it's like 4 to 5 seasons now. Mostly split between the East Coast League and the American Hockey League. Doesn't have any NHL experience to his name, so certainly they'll be giving the starts right now to Soderblom, and we'll see if Wells can come in and be a backup. Of course, Peter Mrazek is also out, so the original tandem for the Blackhawks now on the ropes here on injured reserve, so we'll see how they can handle things here. Obviously not a good situation for them to be in, but Cizikas gets fined. There was some thought he would end up with a suspension on top of the penalty he was given last night, but just a fine is all we get. And Ottawa Senators forward Dylan Gambrell, who was in his first game of the season, ended up getting a match penalty 5 minutes into the game for an illegal check to the head against Lightning defenseman Erik Cernak. There was some concern that he may be facing additional supplementary discipline today, but that doesn't seem to be the case so far, considering how late into the day we are now. I would think it's fair to say the player safety is not going to suspend him any further. The contact certainly wasn't egregious by any means, and I also don't think that it was certainly not as bad as some cases that we did see, but certainly there was 100% contact with Cernak in the head area. Looks like it kind of got him like more on the chin with the shoulder pad. So Cernak appeared to be okay later in the game, and Gambrell appears to have escaped any further penalty on that play. Speaking of goalies like Stalock going out, the Bruins are in a similar situation where they've had to do an emergency recall with veteran Keith Kincaid. Of course, they had quite the tilt with the Pittsburgh Penguins last night. We saw Allmark get the start, Swayman go in, Allmark come back, and Swayman was injured. So Swayman was hurt, left the game, and obviously he's going to be out for some time. Not sure the exact timeline he's looking at right now, but either way, they need another goaltender very quickly here. So Kincaid comes up, and then, of course, they'll likely move some other goalies around within their minor league system to go from there. So Allmark will definitely be getting the starts, fair to say, until Swayman can return. The Minnesota Wild today also confirmed that Ryan Hartman is going to be out longer term. We don't have an exact timeline, but originally there was hopefully it wouldn't be too long, but now they're saying longer term. So at the very least, probably a few weeks, but he was injured in a fight recently, so we'll see where things go from him. He, for the most part, is their top center, so that's certainly not good news for the Minnesota Wild by any means. Now, on to some trade talk from around the league. The Columbus Blue Jackets are a team that's had a pretty rough start. Of course, they're over in Finland right now. I wouldn't suspect that we're going to see anything too quickly out of them as far as trades go, but depending on how the global series against the Avalanche is over in Finland, if they come back with a few more losses on their record, I honestly do wonder. And the biggest issue, the glaring issue, is at center ice. But they're also having some trouble in the blue line. The blue line hasn't been the greatest either. So I'm not really sure exactly how the GM, Jarmo Kekalainen, and his team are going to address the issue. I know Elliot Friedman made mention after the last game, which they lost, that you could tell they're extremely unhappy, and some kind of a change is coming. Some question of head coach Brad Larson may be on the hot seat. I'm not really sure if he is or not. I mean, obviously when a team starts poorly like that, I think they're 3-7-1. Like I said, you add a couple more losses to that. I do wonder if they could go down that road, but I think it's probably fair to say that they can address this more likely with adding some help on the roster. I'm not sure that it's all on the coach here, but certainly they don't have a true established number one center. I think longer term, I think Cole Sillinger can be that guy. I'm not sure that he's ready yet in his second season. I believe he's still only 19, started as an 18-year-old last year. I know they've had players like Boone Jenner at times be that player. And, to me, Boone Jenner is more like a number 3 center, not a number 1. So I'm not really sure how the Jackets are going to address this. But that's by far the weakness. They have some great wingers like Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine, and they don't really have a proper centerman to play with them. So they're weak down the middle. That's an area that I'm sure they're going to look at. I do wonder, and this is just me throwing this out there, they haven't been linked by NHL insiders with sources to these guys, but we know that the Canucks are in having some issues, and there is some uncertainty over Bo Horvat and his future. Not saying that they want to trade Horvat, but certainly a name that's, questionable for the future because he's not signed. There's also some that maybe if they could look to a team and look around the league and find other teams that are not doing well, that might want to talk some business here. Would the Sharks consider moving a guy like Logan Couture? I don't know. I mean, the Sharks overall, they have a few players like Carlson, for example, doing really well, but overall as a team, not doing great. Expected to be lower in the standings this year. Obviously, that would allow them to shed a contract that's longer term. I don't know if the Jackets would necessarily want a longer term deal like that on the books so quickly. So I'm not really sure that's really a good fit. I just seen that mentioned out there, and you have to wonder. So we'll see where things go with Columbus, but certainly help at center ice is certainly something that I think they would like to have on the blue line. I know they haven't been overly thrilled with Adam Boqvist, so I do wonder if he could be involved in some kind of a swap as well to shake things up with that roster. Only time will tell on that front. I know with the Bo Horvat, for example, sticking with him just for a sec, there's some out there, I've seen some reports and some articles wondering where the Red Wings right now also have their captain, similar situation to Horvat, their captain, one of their top centers, unsigned, and Dylan Larkin. Is there any chance Detroit would pivot from Larkin and trade for Horvat? I don't really know if that's the case. I'm still convinced that Larkin and the Red Wings will want to get something done, and I think that there's definitely mutual interest. I would have no doubts about that. Larkin's been a Michigan guy through and through. I can see him wanting to leave, but at the same time, I'm sure he wants to be paid appropriately. We'll see, but that has been out there. I don't know if there's really much of anything to that, though, on that front. Now, there's also talk on the latest version of TSN Insider Trading, and I've also heard it mentioned by some other insiders and writers as well, about Alex Formenton in Ottawa. Seems to be like a forgotten guy. He's the only remaining unsigned restricted free agent. We're now a month into the season. We're a month away from the deadline to be able to play this year. Of course, we saw this, the closest we've come was William Nylander a few years back with the Maple Leafs when they had a stalemate contract negotiation, drugged right on to the 11th hour, and he got signed, I think it was within the hour before the deadline struck on December the 1st for him to be able to play, or he was going to have to sit out for the remaining part of the season and was going to be ineligible. So Formenton, like I said, we're a month into the season, and it's pretty much been crickets. You don't hear NHL insiders speculating on what's going on. There's really no mention of it from Ottawa media, who would probably have the most knowledge of the situation. No mention of it from the team, which is not overly shocking or surprising. They've clearly chosen to just move on here and try to play their game without him. Obviously, Darren Dreger, though, on TSN Insider Trading said, which his words were that the Sens have their reasons for dragging this on. Now, it was also said that a trade at this point seems much more likely than getting him signed, and at longer term, there's a great chance he could even end up playing in Europe. Now, of course, I know that a lot of people think that this is connected. to the Hockey Canada scandal for the World Juniors from 2018. We do know that there was allegedly an incident there. Of course, there was some, obviously a situation we've heard about. It's being investigated between Hockey Canada. Obviously, the NHL's involved. They've engaged the police department in London, Ontario, where this happened, to reinvestigate, you could say. We still don't know anything. This has been a long time. That's been dragging on. Now, I know that a lot of the players, shortly after the incident became known publicly what the allegations were, put out statements saying, basically, it wasn't me. I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the room. Or, yes, I was there, but I had no part in it, and I also have no knowledge of it. Some sort of statement to that effect, basically trying to say, I'm innocent. Now, of course, a few players did not make a statement, and Formenton is one of those players, which a lot of people, which drives me a little bit crazy to be completely honest, automatically associate guilt with this. I've seen so many comments on social media, especially on Twitter, a lot of Sens posts from a lot of trolls basically saying that Batherson and Formenton, because they were both on that team, will be going to jail soon. It's like, we don't know what happened. Obviously some people do, the ones that were there. At this point, some of the investigators might have more information, but publicly, we don't know. So I don't think it's right to be saying any player is guilty, because we don't know that. And just because a player put out a statement or didn't, to me that means absolutely nothing. Have you ever heard a criminal say that they didn't do it? It happens all the time, every day. I'm sure you ask any police people, lawyers, judges, it's constant. So just because a player put out a statement saying, yeah, it wasn't me, do we honestly think that that's the case? And to be honest, nobody's been confirmed guilty of anything as of yet. This is still under investigation. So I'd really like to see the online hate towards anybody on that team stop until we have the facts. Once we have the facts, I will gladly condemn whoever is involved and guilty of this, because it's a despicable act that's being alleged that happened. And I will not give them any support at all, of course, because that's just gross and should never happen. The comments being made by Dreger and others and the fact that it's not even talked about, I will admit that even though I don't think people should be assuming he's guilty and slandering him, it does look odd. It does look suspicious, and it does make you wonder if the team knows more and are waiting for this to kind of come out. I really don't know. I honestly can't say. And of course, they're not allowed to talk about it. There have been times early in the season during training camp when Pierre Dorion or other members of the Senators were asked about it. And it's just that simple. It's under investigation with the NHL. They've advised us not to comment on anything. So we're not going to know until everything comes out, whenever that may be, which we don't know either. So can the Senators trade Formenton? I would think that the trade, until this is all cleared up, is probably going to be unlikely. Could he go to Europe? Maybe. I guess that's always possible. Theoretically, like I said, that's the thing. Right now, nobody has been charged or confirmed guilty of anything. So until they are, they're going to be trying to continue their careers or playing, like some of them are in the NHL, or could he go overseas to Europe? It's possible. Like, this really boils down to the teams and who's willing to give these people employment. That's just that simple. So in the case of Formenton, maybe he goes to Europe. I don't know, but if he is involved in any way, I would assume that charges would come, and then he'd be have to be here to face the music. So I don't know how that's all going to work out, but the fact that he remains unsigned, it's eerily quiet, no talk about it. Now the NHL insiders are starting to bring his name up again just because of the deadline ticking away. I honestly do wonder if there's more to it, but I'm not going to say that he is or anything, because I don't know. And we just don't know. But I do think that his time as an Ottawa Senator is probably fair to say is over. And whether or not he ends up on another NHL team, or if this impacts his NHL career, if he is involved, I don't know. But Alex Formenton's days in Ottawa appear to be over, and it looks like a trade or going to Europe is what's next for him. Now, on to the Leafs. More reports today. Of course, we know it's a bit of a circus there in Toronto. Of course, they're getting ready to play the Philadelphia Flyers, which will be getting underway just shortly after as I record this video. The game will be getting started here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So by the time this hits YouTube, the game will already be underway. Lots of talk about Sheldon Keefe. Is he on the hot seat? Is he not? to be honest, I don't think he is just yet. I'm sure all the Leafs upper management and ownership, I'm sure nobody's happy right now after the way the season has started and the way that this last road trip has gone. But keep in mind, they're also still paying Mike Babcock for this year, who was making big money, keeps making reportedly close to $2 million. Do you think they're going to get another big-time coach to come in who's going to want even more money? And have 3 coaches on the books? I mean, I know they have deep pockets, and they're one of the few teams who could do it, but I'm not really sure that we're going to see that. I think it's fair to say that the most pressure is on Dubas. I think it's fair to say as well that was not, by not extending Kyle Dubas in the offseason, was not only, an obvious thing to him that this team needs to be better and get more success to keep your job, but at the same time, I think it's a clear message to the players that big changes are coming if you don't get the job done. So we've already seen the coach call out some players, including Mitch Marner, multiple times, and we're only like 10 games into the season, which is eerily concerning. I've also seen a lot of fans make comments saying, well, we started slow last year, similar record to the first 9 or 10 games of the season, then they went on a heater, 115-point season. Yes, they didn't win in the playoffs, but I'm not worried about them. I won't be worried until we get to the playoffs. And you know what? You're right in a sense, but to me, it's different. And if you look at the games, you watch the games, it's not the same reasons why they started slow last year. Last year, the underlying numbers, if you looked at the analytics, they were very much in favor of the Leafs. Like, you could tell that it was a matter of time before they broke through, scored more goals, and won games because they were dominating in a lot of aspects of the game, just not on a final scoreboard. That is not there this year. This team is not scoring at 5-on-5 the way it should, given the amount of talent that they can put on the ice. They also had the month of November last year where things really heated up, and they had goalie Jack Campbell go on an absolutely ridiculous run. I can't remember the exact stat, but his save percentage last year in November was like .945 or .950 or something insane, way above average, and he was on a heater, and that was a big part of it. Now, of course, Campbell tends to be that kind of goalie who's kind of a little bit streaky, hot and cold. He tends to do that, right? And right now, do they have a goalie in Samsonov or Källgren who's going to give you that in the month of November? Samsonov's been solid. I don't have any really too many concerns about his game, but I'm not sure he's going to be that good. He hasn't shown that he's going to be just yet. So until he does, it's hard to say that he's going to do it. So I'm not saying things can't turn around. I'm not saying things can't get better in a real hurry here. But I tell you, to me, it's different. And I'm not sure that they can get out of this without making some changes. I mean, obviously, right now there's more reports that we're likely going to see a trade more likely than a coaching change, which I think is totally fair. To me, Kyle Dubas, I don't think will fire Sheldon Keefe unless he is basically forced to. That's his guy. They've been attached to him for several years. I just don't see it happening. I mean, I guess if it comes down to it that he has to save his own butt, his own job, maybe. But I think he still believes in him, and I think he knows it's more of a roster issue, in my opinion, than it is a coaching issue. It's just that simple. So, when you're talking about, I don't see there being a blockbuster, blow it up kind of trade with like a Marner or a Nylander or Matthews. I don't see that happening at all. Like I said before, if they ever go down that road and decide, you know what, this group of 4 or 5 players that are making tons of money that needs to go, it's only going to be 1 or 2 players. It's either going to be Marner or Nylander. And at this point, I think a lot of people would probably pick Marner to go, but we're not the GM, right? But Matthews isn't going anywhere. Tavares, even if you want him to go somewhere, has a no-move clause. He's not going anywhere. Morgan Rielly's by far your top D and signed long-term. He's not going anywhere. So it's got to be one of those 2 guys if something happens. And, clearly, I don't think we're ready or at that stage. So it's likely going to be some smaller moves to tinker around. We're looking at guys like Engvall or an Aubé-Kubel who hasn't really worked out so far. Simmons is down in the minors now. He's still available, but he's got more control with his contract, so a little bit less likely in that sense. Maybe an Alex Kerfoot, who I know sometimes the coach seems to have a hard time determining where to put him. He's making more money than a lot of these other guys, would give them more flexibility. Their D is not good enough right now. They get some injuries. They do have some guys coming back, but still, could they move a Kerfoot or something? A combination of Kerfoot or Aubé-Kubel or Engvall or something. A different kind of depth forward and a D or something like that. That to me would kind of make sense. Like just a minor, not really too minor, but some kind of a small shakeup to me is what seems more likely than all those other things. Obviously, the sky is falling. Tonight, if they beat the Flyers, then they get back to being a little bit closer to what we expect, then I think the noise will die down and they'll probably take things slowly day by day before they react and really do anything crazy. So, not sure we're going to see a lot. I think it's going to depend on how this next 1 or 2 games go before anything really has a chance of being for sure happening. So let me know your thoughts on the whole scenarios that we discussed here today. Down in the comments, we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.